Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics Heads of Eternia pack from Mattel. That's right, it's a pack of disembodied heads. Who would have thought, huh? For everybody who subscribed to the Club 2000X subscription this year, this is your subscription bonus, giving us alternate heads for several existing Masters of the Universe Classics action figures that have more of that 2000X style influence. So let's check these out. As you can see, they come on that standard Masters of the Universe Classics blister card packaging, but instead of a figure, we just have 6 heads floating around in the box there. And when you flip that box around to the backside, we just get a look at the 6 figures that each of these heads goes to. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and open these heads up, and we're going to take a closer look at them. Here are the 6 heads that we get in this particular pack. We've got 2000X style heads for Buzz-Off, Roboto, Clawful, Cyclone, Griz Lore, and Spout. Many of these heads are a very different look than the way that the vintage action figures appeared. And early on in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, many of the early figures that had differing looks in those two eras got both heads packaged with them. But at some point, Mattel put down the mandate that 2000X was out the window, and we didn't get any more 2000X style heads or even designs for a while until eventually they started trickling back into the line. So this is essentially giving us a bunch of alternate heads that we probably should have got back when these original figures were released. So let's go ahead and take a look at them one by one with the action figures that they go with. Let's go ahead and start by taking a look at Cyclone here. Now, overall, his design wasn't too terribly different in the 2002 line compared to the vintage line. I think the biggest difference is that they added a lot more circuitry to his design and almost made him a bit robotic looking, but he definitely had a lot more of that hyper anime detail, which is what was kind of coined at the time. A lot of these guys just had way more detail than the vintage counterparts. So as you can see, looking at the new head for Cyclone here, it just has a lot more going on with it than that vintage style Cyclone head. Still, it's going to be a nice fit for this figure, especially since we've got some of the other details like this ring, which does come straight off that 2000X era design. That was not on the vintage figure. So the heads work just like we've seen on all of the other figures. You're just going to pop off the original head there, and in its place we'll pop on the new head. Now I'm going to start with this guy here to let you know that these heads are very tight fitting. Since they've probably not been popped on a figure before, they need to be worked out just a little bit. And even though I've already put these guys, the heads on once for photos, you can see I'm still having a hard time getting this Cyclone head popped in place. Alright, there we go. So our Cyclone head is now attached. Let's get this red ring put back on his back there. And now we've got ourselves more of a 2000X styled Cyclone. Now he's still missing a lot of the circuitry and everything seen in his armor in that 2000X era, but the head does look really nice on this guy and kind of helps to add a little bit more detail to him. Next up is Buzz-Off. Now, Buzz-Off had a very different look in the 2000X series. They actually made him a lot skinnier and much more insect-like. And the figure we got in the Classics line goes back to the vintage style where he's a lot more beefed up. It would have been really cool to get the 2000X style head for that figure, and I remember at the time a lot of people were hoping to see this. So now we finally have this particular head included for this figure, and you can see it does have a much more insect-like look to it. Still has those nice metallic green eyes, which I love, but he's also got antenna sticking off the head now, so it's quite a bit different. And we take off vintage Buzz-Off's helmet here. You can really see the difference between these two. It's pretty neat. So let's go ahead and pop that new head on the figure here so we can take a look at it. And there we go. There's the new 2000X head on the Classics Buzz-Off body. Now, a couple things I want to point out with this one. I love the sculpt of it. I think the sculpt is fantastic. It's really nice kind of seeing this design done for this line. The paint deco is a little mismatched. The yellow on the face is a much brighter yellow than seen on the chest. It may not be so bad, but my lights definitely show the difference between the two colors. Also, I gotta say that I kind of feel like this head doesn't work as well with the beefed up body. If this head was on that skinnier, more insect-like body, I think I personally would have liked it a little bit more. Clawful. Oh, Clawful. I think of all the figures that we're looking at in this video, Clawful here was the one that caused the most controversy when he was released. He was supposed to get the 2000X era head, at least we all expected him to, and then he did not. And a lot of people really disliked the giant eyebrows and the goofier expression seen on that vintage-like head. So finally, we've got ourselves a 2000X era Clawful head to add to this guy to kind of change up his look. Now, that Clawful was a lot bigger in that series. However, I feel like the Horseman did a good job sizing down the head to make it fit well with this body, but still give it that much meaner look. And of course, he doesn't have those big, bushy, black eyebrows anymore. So if we pop this head on the Clawful body, this is what we end up with. And I gotta say, I really like the look of this one. Now, personally, I always did like that vintage head. I think it's kind of cool, but I see the appeal of this head for sure. And I can imagine that a lot of fans are going to be replacing that vintage style head to put this one on in its place, because it does look very nice. Roboto is another character who still had the same kind of aesthetics in the 2000X line, but he was a little bit bigger and he did have a very different looking head. He's another one that I think a lot of people were hoping to see a 2000X style head come with the original figure, but he did not. So we now have one to add to the figure, and you can see has quite a different look to it there. Just has a lot more designs, really nice elements going on here. You can even move the mouth just like on the other one, although it just kind of moves up and down. It does look a little funny. But let's go and put this on here. Now, with Roboto, I'm going to warn you guys. He's been known to be a very fragile figure because of this translucent chest. So please, please, please be careful if you're planning to switch the head out on this one. It scares me to death every time I do this with this figure. Also, with these being really tight, I would recommend maybe even using the hairdryer trick on a low setting to kind of warm up this head a little bit to soften it up the first time, so that way you're not pressing too hard and accidentally snap the top of the torso here. So let's go ahead and get this head put on, and that way we can see what Roboto looks like with the 2000X era head. It looks pretty cool. I feel like, again, just like with Buzz-Off, this is another one that would have looked better if he had the more bigger body type instead of the Master's body. Actually, that's opposite from Buzz-Off, because Buzz-Off would look better on a skinny body. I feel like this Roboto head would have looked better on the bigger body he had in the 2000X era, but still, it's nice to finally have this head for fans who much preferred that style. Alright, here's Griz Lore, another guy who we thought we were going to get that 2000X style head with the original release. There really isn't a lot of difference with this guy, except that he's got the little kind of face mask thing going around the head, and the position of the teeth are different. He has the two teeth kind of coming out of the bottom of his mouth, and you can see he's got a little bit of an underbite going on there. So that's the big difference between the heads. So let's go ahead and pop those off. It is nice because he does still have the fur, but I do want to point out that very similar to what we saw with Buzz-Off, I'm afraid that the hair on the new head is a slightly different shade of brown from the hair on the head that was originally included with it. So it may not be so bad depending on your lighting, but under my lighting setup, I can really tell the difference between the two hair colors. Still, I like the overall look of it. I'm glad we still have the real hair on there, and it's pretty cool. We can now get a 2000X style Griz Lore if that's the way you prefer to display him. And that is gonna bring us to Snout Spouts. This guy is one of the figures that I feel like is really going to benefit the most from a 2000X inspired head. Now, I again am in the camp that is totally fine with that vintage head, but I get it. I understand why so many people were against it, because it is a very goofy looking head, and the vintage Snout Spout was always kind of looked at as a very goofy character to add to the line. But in the 2000X era, when the Four Horsemen released their Staction, they really showed how amazingly cool they can make Snout Spout. So a lot of people were hoping to see that style head on the Classics figure, and we didn't get it until just now. So you can really see the big difference here. It's modeled much more after that Staction figure they released in the late 2000s. A lot more details, a lot more badass looking. I mean, this really changes the overall aesthetics of Snout Spout. Just like with Roboto, be very careful when removing the old head. He had that soft foam snout, and a lot of people are having cracking and breaking with that now, so don't pull by the snout when you're pulling this head off. It actually makes it a little hard to change this head. Once you get the new head on there, look at that. Massive difference. Like I said, I think this is the one figure in this whole assortment that benefits the most. I think this is the one that I personally like the most and can actually see myself swapping out to display in this method on my shelf. I absolutely love this new head. It looks great on that body, and it just completely changes the character of Snout Spout. So there you go, my friends. There is a look at the new Heads of Eternia pack from Mattel. This is something that was definitely much needed in this line. I know that there are a lot of fans of the 2000X era designs, and we were kind of robbed of all of these heads with the original releases. So it's nice to see Mattel and the Horsemen kind of making good and finally giving us the ability to display all of these characters with that 2000X style if it's something that we want to do. And it's a really nice bonus if you subscribed to the Club 2000X subscription. So this pack here will not be for sale on Matty Collector. The only way you can get it is if you did subscribe. And if you were a subscriber, then you should be receiving this head pack very, very soon. Until next time, my friends.